Niehoff studio at the time was not only sort of innovative in its focus, but it challenged sort of the structure at UC, right? To get colleges that don't normally interact with each other interacting. Now we have things coming out of the provost office like UC Forward, which is looking at collaborative learning and inter-college interactions. And I think the Taft Niehoff was sort of a good microcosm of where the university as a whole needs and wants to go.
We're training students not only to be experts within their own field, but also to work in cross-disciplinary fields to actually create new knowledge and to solve new problems. And Niehoff, I think, is one of the leaders.
The Niehoff studio represents what sometimes is called in academic circles the three-legged stool of research, teaching, and outreach. And by pulling those together, you can actually enhance your research and make it much more applied, much more relevant.
Niehoff has provided a lot of opportunities for interdisciplinary study. The first part of it is that we cannot do architecture today without interdisciplinary approach.
What engineers are doing much more of these days is the kind of interdisciplinary work that we do in the studio. Interfacing with clients, interfacing with city governments, interfacing with architects and other disciplines. So every practicing engineer we have who comes into the studio tells the students, this is really the future of engineering, not the past.
We talk about urban issues, and it's easy for academics to engage with them intellectually, but it's not as easy to find outlets that make it possible to use, or to use is probably not a good word, to relate to the community and to relate to urban issues in a mutually beneficial way. And a space with the kind of mission that the Niehoff studio has makes that possible.
The collaborative atmosphere that's offered here, allows you to get, multiple different viewpoints of the same kind of subject, to give you a new perspective on things that you otherwise wouldn't have even looked at when you're working just by yourself.
In the job market, I'm working in interdisciplinary teams all the time, and coming up with facing problems that don't have obvious solutions, or that have solutions that aren't reachable from a single perspective. And so having that studio environment, that studio experience where we're working with engineers and we're working with community leaders and learning how to solve problems in those environments has prepared me directly for life after college.
I know a lot of times, especially early in the quarter, the engineers would get frustrated because they didn't understand, myself included, why it was so important to look at different groups of people, how they're spread throughout the city, or why certain areas of the city are designed the way they are. And we don't typically think of that. We think of, here's a problem, here's your answer. You don't like it? Well, that's your problem. So there's a lot larger gray area that we were introduced to by sitting down with them and thinking about different aspects of different problems.
Well, in other classroom contexts, I've learned some kind of a concept or planning tool, and then if I want to see how it's implemented, I'm kind of on my own to find how other professional planners have used it and implemented it. And the benefit I've had working as a student in the Niehoff studio and as well as an intern at the Community Design Center is that I'm able to follow one project from its birth as an academic project into its real professional implementation.
So the Niehoff studio is an unconventional environment. It's not a classroom environment. It's not. It's very close to what's out in the real world. And as a student, for me personally, as a side note, it helped me frame how I wanted to study and how I wanted to prepare myself for co-op and for professional life. And so that unconventional environment gives unconventional experience.
The studio students and their work has educated the community, given us perspectives that allow us to communicate with professionals who have in the past been the major decision makers on the direction our neighborhood is going. And now residents can actively participate in that decision-making process.
It was a visual piece that gave us the opportunity to have everybody buy into it. And the visual, as I said before, was provided by the students from the Niehoff Center. So that drove it. It continues to drive it. Whenever we have a question about what we might need to change, we go back to the actual drawing and say, this is what we want to do.
We've worked with the Niehoff studio since 2003. They did a lot of visioning of the area at the market and around the market. They've influenced our thinking about how the redevelopment of the market and its neighborhood should go forward. They've done very specific work for us as well.
Power Inspires Progress, which is Venice on Vine, worked with the Niehoff studio to create a restaurant in which we could do the training that was necessary. And it wasn't just a space, but it was a very elegant and dignified space that had a simplicity and charm to it that made people proud to be working here.
So many times researchers will come in for a grant or a special project and then we don't hear from them again. But the Niehoff studio, with their work with urban food, has been sustainable over years, which is really what it's going to take to help the community move forward and address the issue.
The Niehoff studio can be that think tank where they're coming up with best practices, best ideas that we can talk about. And so there's a great opportunity for the Niehoff studio, the City Planning and Buildings Department, the City of Cincinnati to work closely. It's a great partnership. We get a lot out of all the work that they've done, and hopefully they get a lot out of our comments and our feedback to them. So it's a great partnership, it's a great marriage, and we hope to make it grow even stronger in the future.